I was a new manager of a very old building. I came from social work and was hired to manage a building that was about to celebrate its 100th anniversary. My office was in the basement, along with several below-ground apartments. Of these apartments was an elderly fellow that I knew was on palliative care for extreme kidney failure. He would get medication and food delivered every other week, so when it wasn't brought in, I rang him. And when I got no answer, I asked the police for a welfare check. This was a very warm day in June, and the way the building was constructed, you couldn't smell something wafting out of an apartment unless the door was opened and allowed the smell out. Once the police opened the door, everyone knew that he had been dead for a while. The smell permeated everything. The smell of rotten human got into the air ducts, and it's not something you forget. Fast forward 1 month to July. Now mind you, there are 150 tenants in this 4-story building, and I get a call from one of the tenants' niece saying she hasn't heard from her uncle in a while, and could we please check on him. Of course, I knew this guy. I'll just pop up and make sure he's okay, we'll have a laugh. No answer. I call the police for a welfare check again. It's been a regular 85 degrees outside for a few weeks, and yes, he's passed away. The smell of a dead human is so much different than the smell of dead other things. It's a sticky, sweet smell combined with an acrid taste and a heavy, I don't know how to describe it, dead meat mushroom sort of smell. It doesn't smell like other rotten meat. The ME made a joke about me staging this just so I could see him again. The smell was so bad in the hallway just from opening the door for the few minutes to take the body out that I had entire families running from the building in tears. I knew I had to mitigate this crap. I knew he passed on a small carpet in the middle of the room, so I put some menthol under my nostrils, double-gloved, wrapped my pant legs, and pulled up the carpet that was pretty thick with adipose tissue. I had told the coroner what I was going to do before I did it. I slipped in his goo. I double-bagged his carpet and opened the windows. It's still rough to think about. It involved large fans and me staying up all night. Cut to 1 month later. I'm putting notices on doors for an upcoming bedbug inspection. I smell that smell on the 4th floor. That acrid dead smell. Someone was dead. There's no mistaking it. I start knocking on doors and only 1 out of the 25 answer because it was the middle of the day. I can't just go in apartments. I call the police and they come out and confirm it's definitely a dead body, but they can't figure out where it's coming from. I literally stood there trying to figure out if a dead body constituted an emergency so I could circumvent the 48-hour rule of entering an apartment. The police told me that without something else, they couldn't just start running into apartments. We walked up and down the halls and could not figure out where the smell of the dead body was coming from. I went to my office to print up 48-hour notices of the intent to enter. I laid in bed that night and started to think about it. The smell of dead body only entered the hallway when the door was opened. Someone had the smell of dead body and opened a door. Someone opened a door. Day of, I go apartment to apartment. 10 apartments in, and white-haired middle-aged dude answers the door. Huge wafts of bleach belch out of his apartment. Instead of hanging out like most people would do when someone is inspecting their apartment, he takes off. The floor has been bleached. The kitchen has been bleached. Everything is spotless. Neighbors later said that he told people that chicken went bad. Chicken does not smell like human. I contacted the non-emergency line that day, and without anything else to go on, there wasn't a whole lot they could do. So, middle-aged, nondescript white dude on the 4th floor. Let's not meet. I was in the shower and I heard doors opening in the kitchen, and I was like, What the heck? My mom's not up this early. I open the door to the hallway. My mom's door is closed. I open it and she's fast asleep. I go into the kitchen and there's a cupboard open. I look to the utility room and the door is open with the lights on. I explicitly remember closing that door and turning the lights off after folding towels. Like, even aside from that, the cabinet to the pasta, spices, and cans were wide open. If I remembered wrong on the door thing, I know for a fact I never even opened it. My mother and I had takeout. We didn't cook or make tea that night prior. I don't really know what to do. Like, for a while now, I've been noticing strange stuff ever since my mother left our front door open while heading to school. She's been accusing me of being in her room. She watches Netflix and Amazon Prime, but lately she's come home to her cable being turned on, and on channels she doesn't even watch. She's been noticing snacks going missing in her room as well. I've searched the house and I've found no one, so I'm baffled. This story all happened in the last 3 weeks, and the final part, hopefully, just took place this morning. So to set the stage, I'm a single dad with a daughter who is about to turn 3. I don't really have time to go out and meet people, but I decided I needed to put myself out there, so I made a Tinder profile. I had a few decent dates, but nothing too special. Then, about 3 weeks ago, I matched with a new person. She lived about 30 minutes from me and looked cute, so I messaged her. We started talking and she gave me her number. We texted for a week or so and things seemed great. We both seemed to be on the same page about things, in that neither of us wanted to rush into anything serious, but having a friends with benefits would be nice. So we decided to spend an evening together. The first evening went well, and we got along great. We did the same thing a few days later, and again, everything went fine. But after about 2 weeks, it became clear she wanted to start an actual relationship, and I wasn't ready to commit to that. I made that clear, and she seemed to understand and accept it. After some of the things she said though, I was seeing some little red flags, and I wasn't sure if she was going to actually respect my wishes, and not to try and move things forward into a serious relationship. And there were a number of things she said that made me think she was a bit emotionally unstable. So I decided to take a few days to think about things and decide what I wanted to do. We had been texting at least a little bit every day, and I felt like the daily contact was not helping to convince her that I was serious when I said I wanted to take things slow and not jump into a relationship. So on Friday morning I was texting her, and then just kind of stopped replying. I didn't think much about it since I was really busy anyway. She came to my house that night, just showed up unannounced. I was polite and made up an excuse about my phone being broken. She claimed that she showed up because she was worried that something had happened to me, since I had always replied right away before. But her showing up at my house was another huge red flag. I figured the broken phone excuse would benefit me, giving me time to evaluate this new warning sign and decide what to do. I told her I was fine, but that I'd be MIA for a bit until I got a new phone. I don't have a home internet connection either, so basically all contact with me would cease until I reinitiated. She seemed to be fine, apologized for intruding on my evening, and left right away, so I didn't give it much thought, other than that reaffirming my concern that she was becoming obsessed. In the next few days, she sent a few messages basically just checking to see if I got a new phone. There was nothing too crazy, but it was still very worrying. And with everything else, it told me that I needed to cut things off completely. That leads me to last night. It was 6 days since she had showed up at my house, and I hadn't contacted her so far. I was hoping that my silence would send a message, or that maybe she would forget about me and move on to someone else. But that was not to be. I went to sleep around 12 a.m. and woke up at 6. Upon looking at my phone, I saw literally like 15 message notifications, 6 missed calls, and a voicemail. The text started off saying, "I know you're probably asleep, but I saw you accepted a friend on Facebook 2 days ago, so I wanted to know why you've been ignoring me." And then went to pleading me to answer the phone and finished with, "If you don't talk to me, I'm going to come to your house." This whole thing took place between 1 and 2 a.m. The voicemail was just her, sobbing into the phone and screaming, "Why are you doing this to me?" Keep in mind, I've known this girl for less than a month, and we've only been on 2 dates in that time. At this point, I was pretty freaked out, so I called a friend of mine asking for advice. My friend told me to just be blunt and tell her that threatening to come to my house in the middle of the night was completely inappropriate, that she's acting crazy and not to contact me again. So here I am this morning, after sending her a long text, kindly but firmly telling her that her behavior wasn't acceptable and that she was not to contact me again. So, crazy Tinder girl, let's not meet. Update. For everyone who is worried for my safety, and everyone who sees where I am coming from, thank you, and I'm fine. For everyone who's saying I'm a jerk, I give you that. I should have been honest when she came to my house instead of making up an excuse. I fully admit that. I'm not saying I handled things correctly, but honestly, I would have never written about this in the first place if she had calmly asked to talk about things. This whole thing happened in the middle of the night, so I never even knew she was upset until it was all over. But if you think her reaction was normal, I'll tell you what she said about her own actions. She did reply, apologizing for her actions, saying that she understood why I would not be comfortable continuing things with her after waking up to that, and telling me that she appreciated my honesty and that she knows that she needs help, and that she's actively seeking therapy to deal with her issues. When I was 12, I lived with my mom and brother in a hotel room. We were trying to get back on our feet after leaving my abusive father. The place was the only hotel in our small town that would allow us to live there on a long-term basis. It was a creepy building from the early 20th century, with insanely unsanitary showers and walls covered with old wallpaper made out of thick fabric. Everything was beige with flowery patterns and covered with mold. Our room had a rotary phone hooked to the wall next to the master bed, which had the most terrible, loudest ringtone. Think regular rotary phone from hell multiplied by the fact that the hotel was always silent, humid, and echoey. We hadn't received many calls on this phone as we were hiding our whereabouts, telling reception to say there weren't guests under our name, etc. Once, though, they patched through social services, which probably were the only people who knew to call there. Reception checked with us first to see if it was okay. We were pretty scared at the time, and extremely on edge. My best friend hung out a few times, which made me feel better. We had a crush on the cute 30-something daytime receptionist. With hindsight, he really wasn't cute, just an older man with hair, but teenager us were all over the place. Thankfully, he was ignoring us, / didn't understand he was the object of the giggling. One afternoon, I was reading in my room on my own. My mom had found a job and was to be back in hours, and my brother was at after-school care. I had been there for a couple hours undisturbed when the phone rang. Once I recovered from the cardiac arrest, I picked up. "Good afternoon. Are you?" My name. Yes? So you are an attendant of Friday dance class at town name, Sports Center, right? We're doing a study and I'd like to ask you some questions. I wasn't going to go back to that dance class, but got anxious and irrational about it being a weirdly intricate plot for my father to know where I lived, so I played along. Yes, okay. Okay, so when you dance, afterwards, do you change? Change? Change what? Come on, change clothes afterwards. When you're sweaty, you get sweaty, right? I don't change. There aren't showers in the sports center, so I just go home. And you shower? Long silence. Yes. So what kind of things do you wear? Like panties? I hung up. Then I crawled away from the phone frantically because I didn't want it to ring directly near my ear and kill me, in case he called again. Then I took my coat and went to hang out at the department store until it was almost time for my mom to get home, as if the phone was the thing to get away from, and then I forgot about it. I guess I had too many problems to deal with at the time, so perhaps it didn't seem particularly alarming. Years later, the memory came back to me when I heard a very similar ringtone from hell. For some reason, one thing struck me immediately when I hadn't really zeroed in on what had happened. The call had come through immediately, without me speaking to reception first or hearing the click of them transferring the call. We stayed a few months after that and used the phone more. Plus, at that point, no one knew we lived there except social services, as my mom confirmed since then. I also asked specifically if the sports center did. They didn't. In other words, the caller was sitting at the reception desk. I don't remember who was sitting at the desk when I ran out a bit later. What I remember is staying in that hotel for a few months and not seeing the cute receptionist again. So I've been wondering a lot about what else he was doing, and would have come to light if I had figured out it was him and complained.